Morning,
Hey,
Steve.
how are you?
How are you doing?
No, a long time. Are you well?
Yes, yes, I'm well.
Yeah, well, as well as can be expected, I imagine. But nice to see you anyway.
Nice to see you too.
Good.
Should I slate and go on? Should I slate and start?
Yeah,
Fellas?
go ahead. It's recording. You're all set.
All right. Uh, Steve McQueen, first, I haven't got to see the last two parts of the anthology, but just the first three films has been like an amazing experience for me. Not only just as a cinemaphile and somebody that really has loved all of your work, but just because it seemed like it's opened up a window into something that I had not been familiar with. And that's the life of Black Brits and what happens in these communities that we seem to tell all of our stories here, but it seems like I haven't heard those stories, at least on this scale here in America. So thank you for opening my eyes and showing me some of that. What was your inspiration to be so internal into London and showing that life of Blacks in these different facets within this anthology?
It was very much about my background, very much about sort of where I came from and why, what made me sort of sitting here talking to you right now. So it's fundamental. And it was a need, and it was a want, and it was a passion. And I needed space and time to sort of get to this point in order to understand it better. Similar to like, when you're a teenager, thinking about your parents and then, being, later on in your life and reflecting back, it's a very different view, a very different perspective. So I needed that sort of experience and maturity to sort of do that. But also the fact of the matter is that, these were stories that hadn't been, well, look, it's one of those things where these stories were missing from the narrative of British film. And the reason why I made 5 was because I wanted to sort of, in some ways, fix that hole in a way. And then it just was neglected. It was neglected because we were not welcome into the film community or the television industry in the UK.
I know your last film, Widows, starred Cynthia Erivo, and last year while she was on her campaign for Harriet, there was a lot of dust up, and I'll be the first to say I don't subscribe to this sentiment, but people were criticizing her playing these roles in America for American stories, or British actors in period playing people like Harriet Tubman or playing these American narratives instead of playing, like, people were complaining that they're not playing British roles. Do you think, like, I know a lot of actors were saying that there wasn't work there, and I think you just spoke to that. Do you think, like, this is the start of more of these type of films into the British collection of films? Do you think there'll be?
I think there's a lot of, listen, I just think that, it's going to be the best person for the job. I mean, again, it's one of those situations where, if that director feels that person's the best one for the job, then brilliant. That's about it. I mean, it's one of those situations where I think we don't, as Black people, don't have the time for really to sort of get into this situation where we're talking about this. But sometimes, maybe a person's background and understanding of the time is actually better for the part. I mean, Harriet Tubman, I don't know, or others, I don't know. But, it's one of those things where, it's up to the director and it's for, he or her to decide of what they want. And they can explain why they chose that person. Similar to Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out and others,
Yeah. So many great actors in this. I mean, John Boyega, of course, has already stamped his work on the industry, and Malachi and Sean and Rashinda were all wonderful, as well as the other actors. But Letitia, she was so amazing to me in this, and I think I was the first journalist critic here in America to say, when you did 12 Years a Slave, that Lupita would be an Oscar winner for her role as Patsy. When you look at Letitia's role as
you want to say
Althea,
Letitia's the first person to okay, do it again. Do it again.
I think I was then, and now I feel like Letitia. Yeah. I think Letitia is her role. those monologues were so powerful. Do you ever think about that as a director when you look at your talent like this, like they need to recognize her, or do you ever think
No,
about?
no. It's about the work. Again, if you're a scientist, you're not worried about if you're going to get some award for fixing something. You're interested in basically what you're doing. If it's to do, you're doing the best job at hand. And as an artist, I see it in the same sense. All you're trying to do is portray humanity in one way, shape, form, or the other. So you're hoping that you can actually do that. Recognition, hopefully it comes, but that's not the point. The point is to make these stories. We need evidence. We need evidence, and that's what I'm interested in doing. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's the work. WORK.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say that I'm the first again to say that Letitia should be recognized for that. I think that that's definitely a
Great.
award worthy
That's your
performance.
job. Great. That's you're doing your job. Okay, good.
uh, Also, this year seems like it's been a lot of films concerning the Black Panther Party in some shape or form, and I was happy to see how international it was with Mangrove, because I wasn't familiar with Althea's story and how the Black Panther Party operated in London. But with Judas and the Black Messiah, the Trial of the Chicago Seven, and now the Mangrove Nine, I mean, what do you think that those stories were birthed from the era we're in right now, what we're going through as a world society, that people want to talk about these resistance movements, these groups like the Black Panther? Like, why do you think this year we have 3 movies concerning the Black Panther Party in some shape or form, and you know, for years we haven't?
Well, I think that's a lot to do with coincidence. I think that's a lot to do with the fact. Look, these stories were happening all over the world, and you know, again, I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of situations where people want to talk about a certain time when people were more conscious, people were more sort of. Again, I think people realize that now we have to be called to do things, you know, and a lot of people now have woken up to the point where they realize we can't let things happen. We got to make things happen. And the only way you do that is resisting. So possibly that could be a point. That could be, you know, a part of it. I don't know. But this has been happening all over the world. I mean, again, a lot of people in London, you know, in the 70s and 60s and so forth, you know, a lot of these people were riffing off what happened, what was going on in the West Indies at that time, in Trinidad and elsewhere. A lot of thinkers, you know, Marcus Garvey and whatever, Szilard James. So again, this isn't just a situation that was just happening in America. It was happening elsewhere in the world.
Yeah. Do you? I know 3 years ago, I guess it was about 3 years ago, you did a roundtable with the Hollywood Reporter, and y'all was talking about the accessibility, the amount of Black directors that were working. At least the moderator was asking you about the amount of Black directors, since she was the only one at that roundtable. With streaming and all these services, and you see all of these new films on Netflix and Amazon and Apple TV, do you think that has opened up the gate more for us to have more opportunities to make films? Do you think the industry is just adapting to that our audience is valued and wants to see this, or do you think like these streaming services is really what's opening up the door to a lot more opportunities, or is it a mixture of?
Look, at the end of the day, it's about money, and they know that, you know, there's an audience out there who are hungry and thirsty for this kind of work, and they're going to sort of facilitate that because it makes money, because people want to see that, you know. White people want to see that too, you know. You know, again. So when you got a group which is not specific and it's actually bigger, it's like hip hop, it's like music, you know. Not only Black people buy the music. I think the majority of people buy hip hop are white people. So then once they know that there's a market for it, they cater for it. And also, I'm grateful that we have some great filmmakers who actually want to sort of make great things who are Black. So it's fantastic, you know, male and female, very, very important. And I just want also, I think I just want more Black female directors to come to the fore. I mean, that's very important. That's very, very important right now.
I know you told me before that you've just been a lover of film, and you've been kind of like obsessed with it for a large part of your life. I wonder, like, was there any directors that you recall when you got started that really inspired you, that you saw their work and that you tried to learn from? That, like, is there anybody in particular that you look at and say, yeah, yeah, that was, you know, watching this guy's work or this woman's work, you know,
Hmm. I
led me in a
really
certain direction?
think obviously look at a lot of film, a lot of film. But what sort of intrigued my own ability to want to sort of make film is just look at life. Because and what happens is, you know, you see a lot of films, of course, and you know, you admire a lot of filmmakers or a lot of people how they tell the story. But at the end of the day, when you're sort of walking around the street, you see things happening, and it's how you put your frame on that. That's what inspired me the most in a way of how I wanted to sort of frame things within the context of the surroundings that I saw. Again, you know, that was interesting, and again, you know, my first film was about an IRA hunger strike at Bobby Sands, and wanting to tell that story, and that was interesting in the way that 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 memory of me as a child looking at the news and this gentleman called Bobby Sands and having a number on the top of the screen, not knowing that if that was his age, but my mother told me that was how many days he was on hunger strike. Somehow things like that triggered me. So it's
Mm.
about the idea. The idea is the thing which sort of which inspires me more than anything else.
Well, Steve McQueen, you're definitely one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. Please continue to put out this work. I love it. Like, I'm excited about the last two. I've been bugging them, like, when can I see the last two? But I mean, keep on doing your thing. I appreciate the time, and I can't wait till we're out of this pandemic so we can sit across from each other again and talk some more about films.
Well, much love, brother. Thank you so much. Very kind of you.